think I'll do a little video on how I've got my 2003 Suzuki DR650 set up for doing dual sport rides. Just recently finished the Texas Hill Country BDRX. Did that one in 4 days in February. And we just did 3 days of dual sport riding over in Utah. Did Lockhart Basin loop on the first day, a loop out to Lathrop Canyon on the White Rim, and back to Moab area on the second day. And the third day, did a ride from Green River out through the Black Dragon and up to the Little Grand Canyon area, and then out towards Chimney Rock and back to Green River. And the bike worked really well, so I thought I'd go through some of the things that I've done to it to make it worthy for those kind of rides. Okay, we'll start up here at the handlebar area. These are the stock bars, but I have bar risers, Rox bar risers, and they offset the bars forward about 3/4 of an inch and up about an inch. And those made it a lot more rideable standing up than where the stock bars are located. This is a ram mount for a Garmin Montana 610. I put a little Tusk tack hour meter on here to keep track of my hours. This is a Zeta windshield setup, and if you go out and you look for these have 2 different size windshields. This one's the smaller of the 2. Really works well, and mounting it, you kind of want to mount it straight up and down. Okay, sorry about that. So I was talking about the Zeta windshield. You kind of want to mount it kind of straight up and down. The buffeting is at its minimum there, and then when you're riding and you're standing and you hit, some big G out stuff, you can still hit your helmet on the top of this shield, but not as much so if it were tilted back. If it were tilted back, you'd be hitting it all the time. So that's a really good option. I couldn't have did those rides without that windshield. The windshield just takes that big wind push off your chest and makes it really rideable. Okay, you'll notice the fat grips here. These are slide-on cushions. They're soft rubber stuff that you slide on over the stock or over the grips. Now I put half waffle grips on there, and when I first began riding this bike a lot with the half waffles like I use on my dirt bike, my hands would get really sore at the end of the day. I didn't know if I'd really like these big fat grips, but man, do they make a difference on how your hands feel at the end of the day. Highly recommended. I'm running the stock Suzuki mirrors, and they seem to work just fine. I didn't really have any issues with them. I don't know why you would want to put, other mirrors on there other than just spending the money. I also have the flag handguards, and this one, it wants to move back. You can't really get them tight down here on the mounting position. So if you notice on mine, I have a zip tie here, punched a hole through here and zip tied that so it can't move back and forth on the handlebars. And the other reason why I left the flags on, because I wanted these weights out here on the end, because that helps with the vibration that you get on this bike, and the vibration does get to you at the end of the day. I'll mention the clutch or the choke lever here. Mine's disconnected and the cable's been removed. I left the lever in there because it just seems to fit it, everything fits well with the lever in there, but mine's disconnected, and I have a plunger type choke lever, the extended one from ProCycle, down here on the stock carburetor, and that is super easy to use and it works like a champ. Also notice I've got an inline filter in my hose. I just like to use those. I still have the filter in here on the carburetor, and that works, you know, double filtration, so I don't get any dirt down in here in the bowl. The jetting I'm using is a JD Jet Kit needle, and for the Texas and the Utah trips, I have a 145 main jet in there. I have the stock 40, I think it is, pilot jet, and I use JD's settings for my altitude. My airbox has been opened up, and I have a twin air filter in there. I just opened up the top of the airbox, but other than that, that's the only performance mods I've done to this engine. Of course, you see the Tusk small tank bag, and that works really good. I don't think you'd want to have the large one on there. It'd just be too big and be in the way. With this, it allowed me to sit on the front of the seat when I was in turns, and it's not in the way when you're standing or sitting. I think the small version is the better choice than the large version. All right, I have the Tusk LED headlight bulb in here, and I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty well hidden back there. It's an easy install. All you got to do to get the rubber boot that fits on your stock halogen bulb to fit is to cut the thick ridge out of it, and then the rubber boot will fit around the new LED bulb and its fan. And believe me, we rode at night on the first day in Utah, and it really lit up the road for me to be able to see really good. I highly recommend that. I think it's only like $29. Very, very, very good. And then this is a Moose Racing tugger that I have on there. It's all tucked back in there just in case you need to have somebody help pull you out of a tough situation. Okay, you'll notice the Cogent sticker on the forks. I put the ProCycle Cogent cartridge emulators, 5-weight oil, and the proper springs. I think my springs were, I forget what weight they were, but for my weight, and I highly recommend that. Compared to the stock setup, the stock setup uses progressive springs. You use up probably a third of your travel just sitting on the bike because it's just too soft. With the proper straight rate spring, the Cogent cartridge emulators, and the 5-weight oil, the front end was night and day better than the stock setup. I would not have wanted to ride the Utah stuff because it was very rocky, a lot of steps. Without that setup, it really, really made the difference. As far as the front tire, I'm using a Pirelli MT21. I have it balanced, and I put rim lock in it. Highly recommend that tire. This tire has over 1,000 miles on it and shows very little wear. And then the brake pads are EBC sintered metal brake pads. I use those on all my dirt bikes, and I figured they would work well on this bike, and they did. And the other thing, I bled the stock brake fluid out, and I use Motul RF600 brake fluid in all my bikes. One of the very first things I put on this bike when I first got it about a year ago was this Cheerby's skid plate. It's plastic, and I mean, I would not ride off-road without a plate like that. You never know when you're going to hit a rock that's going to come up and break something. This just gives you a very big peace of mind. Highly, highly recommend it. Seat concepts, low seat. I'm about 5'10", but I got a 30-inch inseam. And this bike is tall, especially with the reset up on the suspension. That 1-inch lower seat, it's comfortable. It gets my feet touching the ground. It really, really was one of the best investments on this bike. Works really, really well. Highly recommend it. The stock seat is pure garbage. I do haul my wife on this bike every once in a while, and where the stock rear foot pegs mount, this would mount up here, their feet are just too high and too far forward. It's not comfortable at all for a passenger. So I made these little brackets. I think they're a copy of some brackets that you can buy online, probably from ProCycle. I just made them. I had 1/8 inch thick steel around here, and I just painted them and cut them and drilled them to match the angle, and they work like a champ. Shock spring. The stock shock spring was way too soft. The sag on this thing, with just me sitting on it, was over 5 inches. That's just not acceptable. So I put a proper shock spring. I got that from ProCycle to match my weight and what I'm carrying when I typically ride. For those of you that don't really know how to set your spring up, when you figure out your weight, your body weight, you need to add 30 to 35 pounds if you're riding in off-road gear, typically boots, camelbacks, etc., carrying some tools, all that stuff. You need to add 35 pounds when you properly get a rear spring for your bike, and then set your sag based on that full weight. That's what I did on this, and made a world of difference. Okay, Warp 9 rear disc guard. I've ridden dirt bikes for a long time. I've been riding for over 50 years. And one of the things that you'll note when you're riding a lot, especially if you ride off-road in any kind of rocky, difficult terrain, if you run a disc guard, which we do on all our dirt bikes out here in Colorado, you'll see it banged up like crazy. If you didn't have that, it would be banging up your rear disc, and once that disc gets bent, you're not going anywhere. So this is absolutely essential if you're going to ride any kind of gnarly off-road terrain. And again, EBC centered metal brake pads, and wheels balanced, a rim lock installed, and this tire is a Dunlop D606. And the wear on the tire, again, over 1,000 miles on that tire, is very, very minimal. The tire's going to last a long time. And it works really well off-road. Just a short comment on the tubes. I think on the front I have a heavy-duty tube in the front, and the rear tube is an ultra heavy-duty. The rears take a lot more punishment than the fronts, and I'm pretty sure that one's an ultra heavy-duty tube inside that. Okay, this rear rack setup is a Tusk rack for DR650 Suzukis. Easy installation, very solid. The subframe on this bike is really, really strong as well. And I use that to mount this top case, and I bought it on Amazon. I don't know if you can see it in there, Maja, but you can get them pretty much anywhere. You can get them at Harbor Freight, whatever. And then this top rack is off of I got it on Amazon. It's for a TW200 Yamaha, and it's just bolted on. And what I use it for, and then this is for my roto packs for my extra gallon of gas. You can see how the top rack was bolted in. And then what I've got in here is I've got my tool pack, tire changing tools. This is a third iron. There are 2 more irons in here. Bolt kit, some hose clamps. There's a air compressor underneath there, rags and gloves, bungees to hold things down if I needed to, you know, take off a jacket or whatever. And then this whole deal is bolted to the rack, and it works great. I'm a street bike rider, and I have a trunk on my FJR 1300 Yamaha, and I use it all the time. It's just the most convenient way to, you know, carry stuff. And I wanted the same thing on my dual sport. So that's what that trunk is for. Maybe people think, well, it's too top heavy, etc. Yeah, it adds some weight. But by the time you put, you know, bags on the back, saddlebags and everything else, you're going to be adding weight to your bike to begin with. And it's going to feel heavy, whether it's up here or down here, it doesn't matter. Your bike's going to feel heavy. Lastly, I'll talk about sprockets and gearing. These things come geared, I think they're 1542, and they run a 525 chain. Well, 525 chain is massive overkill. These bikes only make about 35 horsepower. They're not very powerful. They do have some torque, but they're not super powerful. And a 520 chain has more than enough strength for this motorcycle. So I immediately, when I bought this bike, switched it over to a 520 chain. My rear sprocket stock was 42. I've got a 46 on there, and then for the Utah trip in the front, I put on a 14 tooth front sprocket. That changes the gearing from stock by 17%. When I did the Texas BDR, which was mostly road and dirt roads, pavement and dirt roads, I ran a 15 in the front and the 46 in the rear, and it was perfect. Gives the bike better acceleration, more torque to the ground, and it's not overly geared, so you can run all the way up in fifth gear. With this 1446, first and second gear were perfect for a lot of the technical sections that we did in Utah. Highly recommend that gear combination. I think most people would be very happy with that, as opposed especially the stock setup. The 1542, the thing is geared to run way over 100 mile an hour. It doesn't have enough power to go over 100 miles an hour, so it's just geared way, way, way too tall. I think that pretty much concludes everything that I've done to this bike. I hope that helps some of you that are out there wondering how to set your bike up for some challenging dual sport rides.